President Biden laying out his vision for America in his first address to a joint session of Congress. The president discussing the pandemic, health care, his American Families Plan, saying that spending plans are needed to compete with China.
In my discussions with President Xi, I told him, we welcome the competition. We're not looking for conflict. But I made absolutely clear that we will defend America's interest across the board. We're in competition with China and other countries to win the 21st century. We're at a great inflection point in history. We have to do more than just build back better. We have to build back better.
Joining me now to discuss, a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Armed Services Committee, Tennessee Congressman Mark Green. Congressman, we have to build back better to build back better. Okay, and as Steve Forbes pointed out, we're actually, or Biden plans to, if you factor in inflation, cut spending on defense. What say you?
Yeah, that's about the craziest idea you can have amidst, China is advancing their military leaps and bounds. They now have more ships in their Navy. Their military is advancing its equipment. They've got a fighter plane that's on par with our F-35, basically stolen from us, by the way. This is not the time to cut defense spending while we're wasting so much money concentrating power in Washington, D.C. You think about all these spending programs he's talking about. All it does is put power back in Washington. When the federal government pays for it, the federal government controls it. And that's kind of what, you were talking about in your earlier segment with Forbes, and they're just seizing power, basically.
Yeah, we the people is government. That's the message. But it's up to the Republicans, and we're going to talk, as the show moves on, we're going to talk about Senator Scott's response last night. But how does the Republican Party, looking toward the midterms, craft a message that isn't so haphazard, that isn't responding to this plan and this plan, but really kind of sells the party and the belief in the constitutional freedoms given to all Americans?
Yeah, I think, Megan, we just say a lot of what you just talked about in your last segment. And this is what I'm saying, and I think, Kevin McCarthy and the rest of the leaders in the House are saying, if you concentrate power in Washington, D.C. into the hands of fewer and fewer people, you get tyranny. What our founders envisioned was spreading power amongst three branches of government. No, by the way, let's spread that power from the federal government to the states. And by taxation and pulling money into Washington and then dribbling that money back to the states, the federal government has basically done an end around of federalism and that dispersal of power. So we have to push back against basically tyranny. That's what, and you take, what AOC has said about universal rent control and some of these other economic policies they're advancing. This is communism. You want to compete with China? How about we not go communist with our economic policies? His tax increases. He wants to do corporate taxes higher than China's. If you want to compete with China, how about we not have a tax structure that incentivizes businesses to move to China? It's just crazy.
Steve, jump in.
Congressman, in terms of China, what specifically should we be doing about Taiwan and the South China Sea? What is remarkable, the rest of the world is waking up to it. You have Germany and France sending ships to the South China Sea, which tells you they're starting to get worried. What specific things should we be pushing for now so we don't get, after the Winter Olympics next year, something bad happening with Taiwan?
I think we need a real repositioning of our naval forces in the Indo-Pacific. Steve, I think that would be very important. If you look at what recently happened at Whitsun Reef, the Chinese are getting much, much more aggressive. So I think repositioning forces would be very important to do. Clearly, we have to push back. Taiwan's airspace has been violated more in the past month than ever in history. So Xi is getting much, much more confrontational there. He's probably taking advantage of the fact that the Russians are building up on the Ukrainian border. All that stuff, and despite their recent pullback a little bit there, that puts us in a very difficult position. They know that, so we have to push back too. And an example of of just such a pushback. You know, President Biden had said his initial response to Ukraine was, let's send some destroyers to the Black Sea. And then after pressure from Russia, he backs down. Xi Jinping and Taiwan, they're watching all of this stuff. So we need a strong president who will stand up to bullies across the globe.
Congressman Mark Green, thank you so much for being here. We will see you again soon.
Thanks, Megan.